In this video, we'll learn about the different phase transitions in the game of chess. Once the opening, end, and middle game starts, when the middle game ends and the end game starts, and when the end game ends and something else happens, we'll talk about later. But let's start about what the opening ends and middle game starts. First of all, we have this opening. Don't worry about what the opening is. You don't have to know about it. This is only for illustration purposes. So this is the French defense. And basically right here at this point, the middle game has started. So if white has the opening mindset, not the middle game mindset, they're going to be left behind in dust. They go bishop e2, developing their pieces to connect the rooks, but they're actually behind in the mindset. You have to have a middle game mindset if you want to play the middle game. If you have an opening mindset, you're going to be lost in dust because you're going to be behind psychologically. So if you have a mindset of a middle game, you want to be focusing on your middle game plans, how to deploy things and have a plan. Maybe this one is possible, and you want to have coordination of your middle game plans. Don't be left behind in the dirt because black is already in the future, whereas white is lagging behind and white is toast. So the second example is very interesting. When the middle game ends and the end game starts, so can be really misinterpreted. So people say that when the queen's trade off, that's where the end game starts. That's not true because we have an opening right here. E4, E5, knight 3, knight C6, D4, D6, and then move 5. This is now an end game. We jumped over the middle game. From opening to end game, let's go. And this is not really correct. This is really actually called a queenless middle game because only two trades happen, one pawn trade and one queen trade. There's a lot of more pieces on the board. What is actually the definition of what the middle game ends and the end game starts? Let's say there's a couple factors that we can say that is not fluid, only one answer. You can say that when you have pass pawns be a factor, also when the kings are an active role in the end game. And these things are not true in this case. We have a lot of pawns, no pass pawn to be seen, and also the king's activity is really sketchy because there's a lot of pieces of the board, 2 rooks, 2 bishops, 2 knights for each side. And the plans are in a middle game mindset, not end game mindset, but the middle game mindset is here because you want to actually develop your plans and have creative weaknesses for the other side. And this is more paramount than end game stuff, creating a pass pawn, whereas the end game will be that factor. So basically, every side will be developing your pieces plan and to have this mindset to win the game. So the last example is an actual end game. We have a rook end game, is a defined thing. A rook endgame with rooks and pawns and a king is a rook endgame. Whereas before the last example, we have so many pieces we can't define that was an endgame because so many pieces they can't define which specific endgame if it was that was. It's not an endgame, so therefore there's no endgame to define. Last example. This one is an endgame for the rooks and the kings and pawns as a rook endgame. So rook endgames are the most common endgames to be seen because basically, according to statistics, is 50% of all endgames are rook endgames. And the last transition to talk about is the transition from one endgame to another type of endgame. If white was not smart, he would take this rook because he can, and this is not really good because this transition from one endgame, the rook endgame, to another endgame, a pawn endgame, was really bad for white because black has an extra pawn with pawn endgames. Extra pawns were worth a lot, and this is a really good transition for black, not white. So if white was rather really smart, he would just save the rooks and not force a transition, maybe rook d2, rook h2, doesn't matter, and just preserve the rook to make sure that they can hold on and have some drawing chances because they're down a pawn. You don't want to trade things for things if you're down material any much more than you want to do. So this one is basically you can block a transition if you don't trade down, and this last one is a transition from one endgame to another type of endgame because you trade down. Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.